As senators will come in as they complete their various meetings, I want to thank you all for being here. If someone told you that there was scientific proof that if you drove your car down a certain street, you would kill multiple people, you would stop and not go there. Well, by stopping the clean boiler rule from going into effect, more than 8,000 people per year will die for every year that that rule is delayed. And yet the Republicans in the House have just done that in their payroll tax cut bill. They have attached this rider that would delay, many say for many years, the new boiler rule done by EPA. Standing with me are senators as they come in. As you know, Senator Carper is one of our leading voices in the issue of mercury. And we have representatives from leading public health and environmental organizations, including the American Lung Association, and we thank them for this fabulous, fabulous campaign they're doing. Nothing says it better than a wheezing child, and it is so important that you continue that campaign. We have the American Public Health Association, Sierra Club, Natural Resources Defense Council, National Wildlife Federation, League of Conservation Voters, and Earth Justice. So we're here today to talk about two year-end bills that Congress is considering right now, and we want to tell you what's at stake. House Republicans are loading the legislation, the payroll tax cut, and the end-of-the-year spending bill with harmful riders, unrelated riders that will undermine the health of our people. Time and time again, House Republicans have added, quote, poison pill, unquote, riders to must-pass legislation. And we know what the term poison pill ordinarily means is that it's meant to bring the bill down. They're so bad, they'll bring the bill down. But this time, these are really poison riders because they are, in essence, saying we'll have more poison in our atmosphere. Stopping the boiler rule means this, and this is from peer-reviewed science, my friends. This isn't me speaking or Senator Carper or Senator Lautenberg or others. 8,100 more premature deaths per year, 52,000 more asthma cases per year, 5,100 more heart attacks per year, and 400,000 more lost work days per year, because what they're doing is putting on hold a very important rule that reduces mercury, arsenic, and lead poisoning that can cause cancer, developmental disabilities in children, and damage the brain and the nervous system of infants. Thank you, Grant. Now, the House proposal also includes another unrelated provision to immediately move forward on the controversial tar sands Keystone XL pipeline project without proper consideration of public health and safety. That project could endanger drinking water supplies for surrounding communities, and it does need further studies. The environmental impact statement was done by a company that has ties to the corporation building the pipeline. Now, there's a lot of red flags here, and Secretary Clinton has basically said she wants to take a very hard look at this project. What does the House do? Expedite the project. So they expedite that project, and then they stop a rule that is aimed at the dirtiest of boilers. Now, we also know there were riders on the omnibus bill, but we don't have that final version yet, so I'm not going to take time to go into those unless press wants me to speculate on them, but we already know what's in the payroll tax cut, two dangerous riders. Let me be clear, these riders don't help the American people, but they do help the polluters. The sad truth, and I come to this reluctantly, because it was Richard Nixon who signed the Clean Air Act. So many Republican presidents and Republican members of Congress through history have supported environmental legislation. But this new Republican Party, it seems to me they care more about the polluters than they do about the people they represent. Now, here's the deal on the boiler rule, and I told this to Senator Carper today as we spoke about it. the boiler rule was controversial. The EPA has scaled it back. Some think way too far. There are some speakers here who I know are not happy that it's too weak. It took, out of the 1.5 million boilers, Senator Carper, it only affects 5,500 of the dirtiest. And you have to wonder, why would people stand with the dirtiest polluters in the nation? Since they took over the House in 2011, the Republican-controlled House has taken 190 votes that attack public health and environmental safeguards. Imagine, 190. This is just a look at a couple of them. The Senate has repeatedly voted down these provisions, and I'm so proud of that, such as those in the Republicans' 2012 budget, H.R. 1, and recently a resolution by Senator Paul to stop the cross-state air rule. And by the way, a lot of you here in the audience helped us, and behind me, I thank you, thank you, thank you, because that one was another very harmful thing. What Senator Paul was saying, and many Republicans voted with him, vast majority, is that if your state causes the pollution from smokestacks that carry harmful toxins over to Senator Carper's state, Senator Lautenberg's state, mostly the eastern states that suffer from this, he was saying you're not responsible, even though it's your pollution. And we beat that back and we said, no, we support the cross-air rule. But it's still out there. So I've often said to those who say, well, it's an economic issue. The EPA rules, they're hurting the economy. It's the opposite, because there's one simple truism. If you can't breathe, you can't work, right? You can't work. And you can't get your degree if you're stuck in an emergency room because you had an asthma attack. So the facts are clear and undeniable. A strong EPA and effective environmental safeguards go hand in hand. And we have the numbers on clean energy and how many people are now employed. In California, 10,000 new clean energy businesses between 98 and 07, and even in the worst of our recession, the clean energy jobs were growing at a 15% faster rate than all other jobs. So I call on Republicans to stop attaching unrelated provisions to must-pass legislation, and instead to pass bills that will give the American people tax relief on one hand and not fear for their lives and their health on the other hand. And I hope the American people will call Speaker Boehner and tell him to drop these poison riders from must-pass legislation. So I have to have his number, 202-225-3121. That's the Capitol. Yes. Thank you, sir. A very, very good supporter of mine. 202-225-3121. And simple message is, stop those poison riders. We don't want them. We don't need them. They're bad for the economy. They're bad for the people. Pass a tax cut. And don't take people's health away from them and their families. Now, in order of seniority on our committee, I am pleased to turn to Senator Carper, followed immediately by Senator Lautenberg.
Chairman Boxer, thank you very much, and to my colleagues, to our special guests, and to, I guess you're all special guests, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to cleaner air in this country of ours. Some of our colleagues, both in the House and the Senate, believe that the EPA is rushing to judgment with respect to reducing emissions from boilers. And Harry Truman used to say that the only thing that's new in the world is the history we never learn or forgot. And in this instance, a little bit of history probably would serve us all well. And in 1990, when the Clean Air Act amendments was adopted, the Congress directed EPA to prepare and offer a rule or regulation, if you will, that governs the kinds of emissions that boilers are allowed to make. And EPA was given in the Clean Air Act amendments 10 years to do that. 2000 rolled around, and EPA did not promulgate the rule then, or the next year, or the next year, or the next year. And it was not until 2009 that EPA even proposed the air toxic rules for boilers. Under court order, the EPA finally standardized these regs in February of this year. In February of this year, over 10 years after the direction of Congress in the Clean Air Act amendments in 2000. Based on public comment, the EPA was able to yield the same benefits, to realize the same benefits that they had proposed in that 2009 proposal at half the cost. Now think about that. It took a long time, 19 years after the stipulation to actually propose something in the law. Finally, 19 years later, EPA makes its proposal. They take comments on that proposal. EPA works with industry to try to make sure that we reach our standards, but we do it in a way that it is less costly. I call it better results for less money, something we should all be for. But EPA was able to yield the same benefits in terms of reductions at about half the price of compliance. Again, to address stakeholder concerns, the EPA recently re-proposed the Boiler Act, and I think they've done a good job. Most of these large-scale boilers are located at industrial facilities. They're not in our schools. They're not in our churches. They're not in buildings like that. For the most part, they're in industrial facilities. One might ask, well, how much time do those industrial facilities have to comply with this new, reworked, recrafted regulation? Do they have 1 year? No. Do they have 2 years? No. Do they have 3 years? Well, not really. Do they have as much as 4 years in order to comply with the revised regulation? Yeah, that's it, 4 years. So a regulation, if you will, that's been now 21 years in the making, with an additional 4 years for compliance, albeit at a price roughly half of what was envisioned even a year and a half ago. That's not altogether bad. Now, I realize that some very good people here in the Senate, some of our best friends, actually have other views of this issue, and we certainly want to hear them out. But at the same token, we want to hear from people who think that, well, maybe 19 years or 21 years or 25 years might be long enough. And with that having been said, I just want to thank Senator Boxer for her leadership, and to be able to work with fellows like this young kid over here, Lautenberg, this new kid on the block, who has as much passion on this as any one of us. The last thing I'll say is this. There are a number of sources of mercury in our country. The second largest source of mercury in our country, just to reemphasize that, comes from these boilers. We're not talking about 1.5 million boilers that have to undergo this kind of regulation. As Barbara said, less than 1%. Less than 1%. All right, Frank?
Thank you so much, Senator Carper.
Thanks
Senator
very much.
Go ahead.
Notice the slur said, "This young kid." I'm not a kid. I've been around here a bit. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And I start off by saying thank goodness that we've got our tiger, not by the tail, but our tiger, and Senator Boxer. She has courage, she understands the problems, and she's willing to do what she has to do to fight for the good cause. And I'm reminded as I look at this carriage, my mother, who was left widowed very early in life, age 37, she carried on to take care of her 2 kids, I and a young sister. And my mother had a funny kind of way of projecting things. Now, if she saw a carriage, someone just had a baby, and she'd look in there and she'd make a judgment about the baby, what the baby looked like, and she'd often come up with, you know, beautiful carriage. So as I look in that carriage and I see the reminder about what we're about here, what we're about, There's a group on the other side, the Republicans, in the House right now, but it carries over, who want to ransom our health to keep the polluters making money. And there's a price. They're saying, if you want some money, we'll give you some money, but then you have to let the poisons fly. That's not the way we want to operate. Talk about the spread of asthma and conditions that are affected by foul air. I have a grandson who has asthma. My daughter, when she takes him to play sports, she first checks to see where the nearest emergency room is, so that if he begins wheezing, she knows she can get him there. I don't want to go through too much personal history. My sister was 53 years old. She was on the Board of Education in Westchester County, New York, and she had asthma and used to carry a little respirator. We went weekends and we'd go skiing or places. She always could get this little thing to give her some air if she needed it. She was at a school board meeting one night, and she felt an attack coming on, and she went out to get to her car in the parking lot, and she collapsed on the way, and she died 3 days later. And so this isn't some kind of trivial thing that we're looking at. Any of these diseases that are affected by foul air, foul water, and so forth. And here, these guys have the nerve, and any women in the group too, I don't want to leave them out. But the fact of the matter is that they believe that it's all right to take care of the polluters, be the risk or whatever you want to call it, and we'll give you a few bucks in your income in a tax cut to justify the kind of sinister act that is put upon the people in this country. And we're not going to stand for it. That's the way it is. We, by the way, we're not always in a majority, as you can, as you've seen. But we don't have to take the kind of junk that they want to send us. We have a responsibility. You know, around here, every fight can't be calculated in terms of do you win or lose. It's making the battle. It's sticking up for what's right. It's saying we care about our families and we care about our health. And yeah, money's important, and it is, but we're not an auditing firm. We are a government, a democratic society, whose commission is to take care of our people, to give them a helping hand by making clean air available. Yes, by also making sure that there is a sharing of incomes. So we're here today to announce the fact that we're sick and tired of it. It's been said in the movie. We're sick and tired of it. We're not going to take it anymore. That's right. And so thanks all of you. We're in the same boat, not the same carriage together.
Before I bring up our two terrific representatives, one from the American Lung Association and the other from the American Public Health Association, I think we need to say to Boehner when we call him, and what was that number? 224-3121, is that right? 202? Did somebody write that down? Did I get it right? Oh, say, 225-3121. When we call him, one, we don't want your poison riders, one, so drop them. Secondly, let's put an end to this myth that a healthy environment loses jobs. We gain jobs. I want to tell you that a week ago, there was a story in one of the major newspapers about China. China's air is so foul, is so filthy, that number one, the elected officials drive around with special filters in their car, they live with special air filters in their home, the elite there. They have special air filters in their offices. They literally are protected from the foul air that the rest of the people have to breathe, okay? Well, one day, you couldn't see the roads because of the air pollution, and you could hardly see the airplanes on the tarmac at their airport. This is all near Beijing. They shut it down. So no one can tell us that a safe, clean environment is harmful to the economy. It is essential to have a thriving economy. And since the Clean Air Act was signed, America's had the most growth of any other developed nation. So let's just challenge him when we call him at 202-225-3121. And it is now my privilege, and I want to thank my colleagues, and I know they have other things on their agenda. I am so fortunate to chair this committee. You're sitting in this committee room where the great, great landmark environmental laws were written, and we will be darned. We are not going to allow them to be repealed under our watch. We're not going to allow them to be weakened under our watch, and we're not going to allow them to be subverted under our watch. And we have enough people to stand up. And with you behind us, it's very powerful. Santa Claus, I said on the floor today, it's Christmas and Hanukkah, and a lot of people are getting gifts. I don't think anyone ever contacted Santa and said, bring me a box of mercury, and then a very pretty box of arsenic, and then an even prettier box of lead with a ribbon on it. I don't think that we're asking Santa for that. And just on cue, our Santa has walked in. Before I ask Paul Billings to speak with the American Lung Association, Ben, your timing is ideal. I've been filibustering. Come on up here and say a few words. Say a few words, please.
Well, Senator Boxer,
so much for being
thank you very much, and all the people that are here, we thank you. Our message is very clear, and that is we are going to do everything we can to protect the health of the people of our nation. We're in the Environment and Public Works Committee, where Senator Boxer is our distinguished chair. And in this committee room, some of the most important legislation has been passed in our nation, the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, that have protected our nation's health, where America has been a leader. And we're proud of that. We're proud of what we have done in this committee room. The polluters want to avoid this committee room. They want to put their anti-environmental riders on legislation without coming to the committee and having the public hearings and defending what they're trying to do and get the action of this committee. Well, our message is simple. We're not going to let that happen. Our message is simple, that there shouldn't be any anti-environmental riders on the FY12 bill, no anti-environmental riders on the payroll extensions, no anti-environmental riders.
So this fabulous symbol of clean air has great leaders. A lot of you are out here today in your shirts, and we're going to turn to a great leader in our nation, Paul Billings with the American Lung Association. Paul?
Thank you, Chairman Boxer, Senator Carper, Senator Cardin. Thank you, Senator Lautenberg, who just left. Fellow health advocates, on behalf of the American Lung Association, I'm proud to stand with you today to say no to anti-public health riders, no to blocking common sense protections from toxic air pollution, no to weakening the Clean Air Act. Earlier this year, the Senate rejected H.R. 1. Remember that one? A must-pass bill that was loaded down with measures that would block health protections. The American Lung Association called that bill toxic for public health. Today, we are here again to fight against legislation that is equally toxic for public health. Once again, we need the Senate and President Obama to stand tall and say no to toxic air pollution. The public wants EPA scientists to protect their children from mercury, arsenic, lead, and other toxic air pollutants. We've been waiting more than 20 years for these safeguards to be in place. Perhaps you've seen this red baby carriage in our recent campaign against air pollution. The American people don't want more delays. They don't want more air pollution. They certainly don't want infants and children to be harmed by air pollution. And they don't want more than 28,000 people to die prematurely from air pollution from industrial facilities. They don't want 150,000 asthma attacks. And they don't want more than 17,000 heart attacks just from one rider alone. This toll can be avoided if Congress rejects this rider that will block the toxic air pollution cleanup. People can live longer, healthier lives if EPA updates these standards covering industrial sources of toxic air pollution. We shouldn't have to wait a day longer for clean, healthy air. Please say no to riders and yes to health. Thank you very much.
And now Don Hoppert with the American Public Health Association will speak.
Thank you, Chairman Boxer, Senator Lautenberg, Senator Cardin, for inviting the American Public Health Association to join you here today and with the other health advocates to thank you for your ongoing commitment to protecting public health. APHA is the oldest, largest, and most diverse organization of public health professionals in the world dedicating to protecting the nation's health from preventable health threats, including dangerous air pollution. APHA strongly opposes the ongoing attempts in Congress to block the Environmental Protection Agency from moving forward with important health protections under the Clean Air Act, including this week's effort to block the EPA's rule for industrial boilers that is included in the House Republicans' so-called jobs bill. EPA's proposed rule would reduce mercury and other air pollution to provide significant health benefits, including annually avoiding up to 8,100 premature deaths, 5,100 heart attacks, and 52,000 asthma attacks. Additionally, the rule would provide $12 to $30 in health benefits for every dollar spent to implement the new standards. Congress should not be using legislative riders to override EPA's science-based rules to protect the public's health from dangerous and deadly air pollution, and we urge every member of Congress to reject this and all efforts to block EPA from protecting the public's health under the Clean Air Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I told you we had others who are not going to speak, but I'm sure that answer questions if there are some from the press. Just to remind you, in addition to the Lung Association and the Public Health Association, Sierra Club, Natural Resources Defense Council, raise your hand, Sierra Club person, Natural Resources Defense Council person, the National Wildlife Federation person, and the League of Conservation Voters, or they're not here, but Earth Justice. Oh, come on up, yay, I'm glad you're here. And Earth Justice, okay. So this is quite, we're talking about a lot of Americans who support these organizations.